Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. Earlier today, I did an interview at WPFW in D.C. with Julianne Malveaux. You guys should know her, economist and etc. Went pretty well. We enjoyed the interview. Then it was back to business. Back to business. We're going to have a great show for you today. What are we going to talk about? Well, let's get busy and start seeing what we're going to talk about. Let me pull that screen up real quickly. The name of the show today, COVID Relief Hypocrisy. COVID Relief Hypocrisy. And then we're finally going to get to play Clint Padgett points out communication is not conversation. And we'll talk a little bit about anything you want to talk about. Anyhow, welcome aboard, Bridge MCP. Great to see y'all. Great to see Nanette Bird Smith. Hey, Anyhow, Michael Rudnin with his initial research. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy sentenced to jail for corruption. I read that. We could do with a little accountability here in the U.S. as well. Well, that sets the precedence that a former president can actually, guess what? Go to jail. Ir a la prisión. So, we may have what do you call that? We may have an example where we see one of a president of a Western country go to jail. Sarkozy. Let's talk about Donald Trump, where he belongs, in jail. Second one, Tucker Carlson false claims downplaying role of white supremacists at Capitol riot. You might as well rate Fox pundits as propagandists, conspiracist theorists now. They lie often. It's amazing they are still allowed to be on air. Used to be, if a news anchor or pundit was caught in an obvious lie, they'd have to offer a retraction or lose their jobs. We as a nation need that, again, to have journalists with integrity, which they're sorely lacking. I agree so much. I think we have to get to the point where a provable lie is tantamount to a crime if you are broadcasting it knowingly. I think we need to get to that point, and we have to find a way around this free speech thing about that. And I'm talking about on all sides. The thing about it is all sides don't do this kind of stuff. So it'll basically affect one side. Trump is guilty of pandemicide. We passed 500,000 COVID deaths not too long ago. Trump knew about the dangers of coronavirus months before the first cases hit our shores, and he did worse than nothing. Trump lied to the people, downplayed the dangers, turned mask wearing into a culture war issue, prevented the USPS from delivering masks to every household, put economy above people's lives at every turn. He didn't put the economy against people, or that's not what he did. He used the economy to enrich a few. Repeatedly went against public health experts' advice, sometimes going so far as to fire public health officials, and became the primary source of most of the right-wing bubbles disinformation, turning so many conservatives into super spreaders until COVID became the leading cause of death in America, and ensuring the staggering death toll was probably 10 times higher than it otherwise would have been. Trump deserved to see the inside of a courtroom for all he's done. He deserved to see the inside of a damn jail, a prison. That's a very good piece that you got out of foreignpolicy.com. Excellent breakdown. Folks, we have to remind people that absent Trump, there would not have been 500,000 people dead. I think they were kind to say tenfold, meaning only 50,000 people would be dead. I would counter that there would be a lot less people dead. Look at what's happening right now. People are getting scared. They started to put their masks on, and look at the nosedive that the transmission rate has taken. Of course, now that many cities and states decide, we're going to open up again. And what's starting to happen? The line has started over the last few days to go back up. When will we learn? Wait for the vaccines to take effect and continue protecting yourself. Is it so difficult? That is what happens when you have bad leadership. Bad leadership. Okay, let's see. Linda E. Hey, welcome aboard. Fairness doctrine might be hard with cable, but it's something. We need the fairness doctrine, but we need more than the fairness. I think we need to start getting punitive. We need to get punitive. Okay, let's see who else. Mark Smith. Hello, folks. Exactamente, Marco. Exactamente, Marco. All right, welcome, Mark Smith. Let's see who else is here. Michael Rudnick. Berta, thanks for reading my words out in full. Well, Rednan, let me tell you, if you're going to find the time to give us good information, it behooves me when I can, when I'm not oversupplied with info, to do so as well. So thank you so kindly for all that you do. Not only you, Rednan, but all of you that send me stuff through email, that send me stuff through Twitter, that send me stuff all kinds of way. I appreciate you because we are going to have to use a team effort to solve this. I made a proposal earlier on the DC program that I was on earlier today about the minimum wage. In other words, let's not, look, we want the minimum wage in this bill. We're probably not going to get it. Let's not go buck, you know what, crazy about it. Let's hold off. And there's another plan that I think will actually work. And it may actually work in two ways. It may actually work to help us go ahead and say, well, we just as hell have to get rid of the filibuster. But we can talk about that another time. Nanette Birdsmith says Brokaw and Wren rather paid a price for non-truths. Yeah, they did. You remember that? When Rather did the piece on that wasn't well corroborated for Bush, and Brokaw, I don't remember the particular incident with Brokaw. But anyhow, folks, if you're just joining us, please go ahead, follow on Twitter. That is Egberto Willies on Twitter. Egberto Willies on Twitter. And likewise, if you are on Facebook, like our page, which is politicsdoneright.com. I mean, rather, just Politics Done Right. What you do is you go facebook.com/politicsdoneright. And actually, if you comment there, that is where we see things. Okay, let's get busy. Oh, you mean Daniel? LOL. We need to get punitive. Spoken like a true tyrant. Egberto is a fascist posing as a liberal. No, that's not what I said, sir. What I said, if you find somebody on air knowingly lying, which is causing harm to people, having people make decisions based on lies, they should be accountable, not just civilly, but criminally. In other words, Donald Trump should be accountable criminally for lying to Americans, which has caused the deaths of 500,000 people. That the blood of those people are in the hands of Donald Trump for his lies. That's what I'm talking about. And it goes way over to many other subjects that Fox News and other liars in chiefs have done to the American people. So we should do that. We should find a way to punitively, I repeat, punitively take care of those who go on TV and lie, and their lies have a material detrimental effect on society. Okay, let's go with Jenseki and then we'll move on to the next. The mainstream media continues to adopt the GOP, the Republican talking points about bipartisanship and doing what's best to ensure unity. What they really mean is capitulation. What they really mean is if you don't adopt what we want as we want it, then it is not bipartisanship. You are being partisan. Let's listen to how Jenseki handled Dana Bash when she pushes in the Republican talking points. She comes back to the issues, but we'll go ahead and explain it better on the other side. Check this out.
President Biden's sweeping $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package is now in the Senate, as you know. A cornerstone of this campaign that he ran, his presidential campaign, was bipartisan cooperation. He called it a mandate from the American people. He got 0 Republican votes in the House. It looks like he may get 0 in the Senate. Can you point to one concession that President Biden is making to this package to try to win Republican support?
Well, first I can say, Dan, I think there have been more Republicans in the House and Senate sitting in the Oval Office over the last month, having a discussion, having a debate at times with the president about what they want to see in this package, what we can work together on, than perhaps over the last 4 years. The president has been open to hearing good ideas from Republicans and Democrats on how to make it better. And at this point in time, though, what this proposal is going to address is how we're going to help people bridge through this period of time, get them direct checks, reopen schools, get more vaccines in the arms of Americans. We have not seen a substantive big proposal in response back from Republicans. This is the scope of the problem and the scope of the kind of package that we need to pass to address that.
So he's definitely had discussions with Republicans, and he's heard their concerns. So is he open to actually acting on that and changing his proposal, changing the legislation to address those concerns?
He's been open from the beginning. There's been more targeting of the direct checks. He has not been willing to negotiate on the size of the checks, but there has been a targeting to ensure that it hits the Americans who need that help the most. That's an idea that has come up in meetings with Democrats and Republicans, and he's certainly open to hearing from their ideas. What he will not do, though, is make this a Washington political partisan issue and prevent American people from getting the relief they need.
So this bill
70%
could change.
of the public wants this bill to pass. Well, it's going through the Senate process. As you know, this is democracy in action. We know that the bill will look different on the way out, as it did when he presented it in his primetime address. But there is an urgency here, Dan, as you know, because by the middle of March, 11 million Americans will lose unemployment insurance. So we need to move quickly and rapidly to get this relief out to the American public.
It's definitely.
Now, Jenseki did something great. She answered the question in full when she said there is no substantive big proposal coming from the Republicans. That should have squashed everything. In other words, the Republicans have no positions of consequence that they're putting out there. But more importantly, she also said we are bringing into this White House Republicans and Democrats, and we're listening to their ideas, and massage within this budget will be all the positive ideas that make a difference from everybody who comes in. Already the American people say they want this package, which means the package is in effect. If it's not bipartisan in the Senate, it is in fact, or on the House, it is in fact bipartisan where it matters with everybody else. But here's the thing that Jenseki is very good at. She continues to tell Americans specifically how it's going to affect them. You will be able to go back to school. You will be able to have vaccines. You will have relief financially. You will have relief on the things that matter to you. She didn't go into all the intricacies of the Senate and the filibuster or any of those things, because most Americans don't understand that. They don't know that. They just know things aren't getting done. So she says, if we pass this bill, this is how it's going to affect you, American people. And this is something that progressives have not been very good at for a long time. We don't tell Americans in good detail how what we're doing is bread and butter for them. Republicans are generally very good at telling them, if this happens, this is going to harm you in this way, even though most of the times they're lying, but they're saying, this is going to harm you this way. And then the right wing, the people who think they're right wing, jump in and say, we don't want Obamacare because Obamacare is going to take my mother and throw her over the cliff. But Jenseki has the inoculation to that. When you pass this bill, this, and this is how your life is going to be better. So this is the kind of narrative we have to keep. And they come on TV and they tell it and they write about it. And we should, as progressives, those of us in the independent media, we need to continuously press on it and keep the narrative straight. Sorry about that, guys. I turned it off because I was going back to, I wanted to prove that what occurred was that Daniel Ledo calling your host truly a liar was really not true. What it turned out to be was that when I was told that when Linda E. said we need to bring back the fairness doctrine, I said we need more. It has to be punitive, which means if you, just knowing that I use the fairness doctrine with punitive should have allowed Mr. Ledo to come to the right conclusion. But when you're trying to find somehow that the host has lied, you know, we don't lie here, that the host has lied, that is what you do. So, no, there was no lying here at all. We don't do that. We are not called Fox News. We are not called OAN. We are not called that other right wing station. We don't lie. We tell the truth, and if we ever make a mistake, we correct for that mistake. Let's see, Lee Grant. Let's see who else. So welcome aboard, Lee Grant. Wendy Green. The current system is minority rule. The R's still run things along as there's still a filibuster. Exactly. We need to get rid of minority rule. Period. The protection for minorities is within the Bill of Rights, but democracy can have minority protection without having minority tyranny. What we have now is the tyranny of the minority. The tyranny of the Newsmax. Thank you, Michael Rudnin. The tyranny of the minority. Anyhow, let's go to the second video and then we'll move on from there. The House passed the COVID relief bill. Interestingly, there were two Democrats that voted against it, one from Oregon and one from Maine. I don't understand what that is about, but I think going forward, their constituents who are going to benefit from this bill should know how they voted. Now, here's an interesting thing. We ought to remember that when the Republicans passed a $2.3 trillion bill to give tax cuts to wealthy people and corporations, they said, oh, that's going to pay for itself. We knew better. I want you to listen to Ali Velshi, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Expect unanimous opposition from Senate Republicans who say the relief package for desperate Americans is too expensive. It'll increase the debt by too much, which sort of ignores the $2.3 trillion in tax cuts that they forced through just a few years ago. $400 billion more in tax cuts than the Biden package for the ordinary American worker. Remember, those tax cuts were supposed to pay for themselves and not increase the deficit. It did not have that effect. All of us expected it would not have that effect. It increased the deficit. We can increase the deficit, apparently, to give corporations and wealthy people tax cuts, but not when regular working Americans need it. Indeed, the man who spearheaded that extremely partisan effort to get those tax cuts passed, current Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who was Majority Leader at the time, is now criticizing President Biden's efforts as, quote, partisan.
Listen, these people in Congress, Republicans specifically, they feel empowered to be able to do anything and not suffer consequences. They feel empowered to lie to their constituents. They feel empowered to make sure their constituents aren't paid their fair share of the American pie as they transfer the wealth of most to the top. They feel empowered to do that. And why? And that is because they know that if they express the support for the masses in a particular fashion, that their constituents would say, I rather hurt myself than see others, including myself, do better. They work on a carnal portion of the minds of many to believe that somehow lifting all is affecting them negatively. We have to get away from that. But after Ali Velshi brought that story, and he brought on a new guest, her name is Heather McGhee, who wrote a new book titled The Sum of Us. And in that book, she states many of the reasons why so many vote against their own interests, why the Republicans who continue to hurt the masses feel empowered. After reading the synopsis of this book and after seeing what it's all about, I think more of us need to get deep inside our own hearts, our own souls, to understand why it is we support those who harm us, those who would make our personal economies worse, those who are not there in general for us all. So folks, let's go ahead and start thinking straight. Let's go ahead and start helping our fellow person see the light in whatever manner we can. That is what we try to do here. That is what we're going to continue to do. But the fact that it has been so difficult to get this bill passed, that it's so difficult to get it the size that it should be a wake-up call, not just for progressives, but for all Americans who need what's in this bill. That is so true. That is so true. Now, earlier on, Daniel Ledo likes to talk about lies, right? Newsmax is one of the thing that the right wing like to use as, oh, they're pro forma people telling the truth, right? I want to show my audience something known as ranking the truthness of stations, right? Here is, and I want to thank Rudnin for this, because he reminded me that, hey, let me go ahead and do a fact check to see how news channels do, right? This is for egbertowillies.com. That is my news channel, okay? Notice what it called. Look at the reliability. Factual reporting. Notice what it says there, high. And it says, of course, I'm progressive, liberal. Everybody knows that. I'm progressive and liberal. But I want you to also see what it has to say, not about egbertowillies.com, but what it has to say about Newsmax. Because, we like to be accurate in what we report. So, Daniel Ledo, you may want to see how your channel ranks, right? Now, this is how we rank for Newsmax. Mixed. Not mostly factual. We are high. Look at mostly factual, not even mostly factual for Newsmax. For Newsmax, it is low, or rather, it's mixed. It is mixed. I haven't done OAN right now because I really didn't have the time to go into that. So when you want to know when Ledo brings comments or other conservatives who use these different sites, remember, Newsmax, not factual. egbertowillies.com, highly factual. Highly factual. So now that I've presented that, I hope we won't have to discuss this with Daniel Ledo anymore. But the reason I like to put that out is that we get new people that come and listen to us all of the times, and we want to make sure that they're well informed and not put off by some of the people who would attempt, I don't know if they're paid or what, but who would attempt to disparage our truthfulness. Here is the other one that I want to get to you guys now. Check this out. GOP Senator Bill Cassidy appeared on State of the Union with, Dana Bash hosted it today, and he made a crazy statement. He fears that the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill is going to create a Trojan horse. And guess what that Trojan horse is? It's going to create inflation. Let's listen to him, and then we'll take it on the other side.
My fear, this becomes a Trojan horse for things which actually injure our country. Left-of-center economists, Democratic economists like Larry Summers, have pointed to the danger that this will ignite inflation. Igniting inflation, which hurts middle-income families, working-class families, chewing up their savings. This can be the Trojan horse that destroys the future for families, but it sneaks in because it gives these initial benefits. That's my concern. It would have been better had they actually listened to us in fact, as opposed to merely in rhetoric.
So as the president was talking to you in that White House meeting and you saw the staff, as you report, shaking their heads no, was your sense that he was interested in making a deal, but he's being pushed not to?
I can't speak of their internal dynamics. Of course, the president presented himself as he did in his inaugural address. Yes, he was open to unity and bipartisanship. That has not been this legislation. There has not been any significant input from Republicans beyond, hey, do you really want to give stimulus checks to people making $290,000 a year? Now they've cut it to $200,000 a year. Is that the sort of focus the American people want? I think they would like a little bit more focus. So the president so far has been about rhetoric. Republicans remain willing and are working on issues that require bipartisan cooperation. We've done 5 on COVID relief package in the past. It could have happened here. They made a conscious decision not to include us.
My question is, let's get some history here. Why would we want to listen to Republicans on economics? We had Reaganomics in the 1980s, which destroyed the economy. It gave us a sugar high, but it blew up our deficits, and thereafter our deficits started growing. We got and Bush number one started to mitigate that, but then came Clinton. He went ahead and increased taxes and had the necessary spending, and not one Republican House member voted for it. Not one voted for it, and guess what? They said it would have created inflation. It would have destroyed the economy. We had the largest economic expansion ever, even larger than that of the Reagan sugar high. Then, of course, we got Bush number two into power. After Bush came into power, he slashed taxes. He gave away the house to the wealthy. The economy again crashed in 2008. We got Senor Obama into the White House. Obama under pressure. He goes ahead and he gets a huge stimulus package, but again, with too many tax cuts as opposed to stimulating the economy. What did we get? We got a great recovery that went on for over 10 years, but that recovery could have been much better had the money's been allocated differently. And so it was a slow recovery, but a steady recovery, a solid recovery. We get Trump into office. Trump blows the economy. Huge $2.3 trillion tax cut. They didn't worry about somehow that was going to be inflationary then, but they went ahead and said, oh, that is necessary to bring back the economy. Of course it didn't. What we got was a continuation of the same slow economic gains that was a continuation of under Obama, because nothing fundamentally changed for the people who spent money. So why would we listen to Republicans when they give those types of advice? So the Trojan horse isn't that the COVID bill may be a Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is, if we don't pass it, we get this slow recovery. We get that slow recovery. Americans said, what difference did you make, Joe Biden? What difference did you make to us? And they re-elect and put people in who are lying to them and saying, oh, we can make things better with less money. It doesn't work that way. The reality is you never listen to those who have constantly crashed our economy and think you're going to get something better. That's insanity, doing something the same way and expecting a different result. The one great thing that Joe Biden has done with this bill is he made it big, bold, and the money goes into the hands of the people who need it, as opposed to tax cut with the expectation that it's going to trickle down. Now let's have a 30-second thing on inflation. Inflation depends on there being a shortage of products, a shortage of services, a shortage of everything else. We have an oversupply of them all. We have people who want to work. We have work that needs to be done. We have factories that need to be built to create products for the people who need them. If there are more people chasing for products, chasing for things, and the availability isn't there. Do not believe the lies of false economics that is simply there to transfer the wealth of the basic middle class and the poor to a select few at the top. Let's get the truth out there. You cannot have inflation unless you have a shortage of products, and that is something we don't have, and that is something we are unlikely to have anytime soon. Now here is a chatter. We do a lot of talking here, and what we want to make sure to do is tell the truth about things, right? Well, it turns out that this is what our good follower Daniel Lado, replying to MCP, says. I come to hear the latest talking points of Marxist cabal. You see, I don't blame Daniel Lado for this. This is what these networks that these people watch, as well as the emails they get, as well as all that right-wing stuff that gets implanted into their minds from those who control the strings that pull them. That's what they hear. So for Daniel Lado to say that, I actually believe that he believes that. Unfortunately, it's not true. But at the same time, he says, I come to see the wreck that is Egberto Willies. The hypocrisy and arrogance amuses me. Somebody like me speaking truth and challenging those who will lie to others, it's called arrogance when I do it, right? Sure, that's fine. I come to make lists of the guilty. I come to renew my motivation to buy more ammo even as the prices spike. You don't take that lightly. You need to make sure that when you see comments like that, they get to the FBI so that they have them on a real list. Because when they have them on the real list, if something happens to any one of us, they know where to start. So this message goes you know where. But it's important because, again, you don't want to wait till something happens. Whenever you have right-wingers that come in, you try to be nice to them and you try to friend them and you try to hug them and you try to love them. But if they ever give you the inklings of violence attitude, violence in the waiting, or violence otherwise, sure that they do get their names on a legal list, the FBI list, a list of people to watch. You always do that, friends. And so this is a message that I'm telling all my people here. If you are ever threatened anywhere, online or otherwise, let it be known and do not take it lightly. Make sure that person's name appear on an appropriate list so that if something goes awry, there is a place where investigations can start. Very important. And thank you, Daniel Ledo, for doing that because it gave me the opportunity. It's something that I've been meaning to tell people a long time. Right now, the terrorist organizations the most dangerous terrorist organization in this country right now are right-wingers. Okay? Or the militias and others. Remember, they are the most dangerous. So look out, be careful, always be aware of your surroundings because they are, in fact, their minds have been taken over by a certain sect. Their minds have been taken over by a certain sect. So you get a threat at any time, you make sure to report that threat. Anyhow, continuing, I want to make sure to let everybody know, folks, please go ahead and support us. How can you support us? You can either go, if you're on YouTube, you can give us a super chat, which we love. You can also click the join button and become a member of our YouTube posse put out there by our good friend, Brige MCP. She's the one who run that thing for us. And if you can't see that join button, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. You can also support us. And by the way, we also, Brige MCP designed a cup for this thing. I want to show you the cup that Brige MCP designed for it because it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I think I have it here, the mug. Check that out. So for people who want, they can also go and get our mug. And how do you get our mug? You can get our mug by going to this link here at our store. Here is the link to get to our store. There is the link to get to our store. So I hope you consider doing that at your convenience. I hope you consider doing that at your convenience. Alternatively, you can support us by becoming a Patreon. politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. politics.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Patreon. Now, alternatively, you can visit us, visit our PayPal. That is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. And, of course, you can shop for our book at our store, politicsdoneright.com/store. politicsdoneright.com/store. Look, here is the Amazon link. There is the, let me put that up here. There's the Amazon link to get our book, the name of the book, of course, and let me put that book on the screen right now. The name of the book is It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. That's the ones that are willing to talk to you, listen to you, etc. So thank you so kindly for going ahead and either consider getting our book, consider being a part of the posse, and consider being a part of us. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play our person right now, Clint Padgett, and then we'll take it on the other side. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Today we have a special guest. We're going to be a little less political today, though I'm going to touch a little bit about that anyhow. Clint Padgett is the president and CEO of Project Success, Inc., and the Forbes books author of How Teams Triumph, managing by commitment. He will discuss how the remote working trend that gained ground in 2020 might play out in 2021 and potentially could lead to communication breakdowns as employees are separated from each other and the boss. Anyhow, welcome to Politics Done Right. Clint, how you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, let me tell you. First of all, I've been talking about this issue for a long time, probably from a different perspective as far as as far as our economy, never again going to see everybody in the office again, because many companies would have seen the efficiency of working from home, working remotely, and sometimes even getting more done. But I think you may have a little caveat to that, and it has to do with the difference between communication and conversation. So why don't you talk to me about that?
Sure. So I think also it'll probably play well for you, because I do think this has what I'm going to talk about from a business perspective certainly plays in what we're seeing in the political arena, and the lack of a diversity of thought where people are surrounding themselves in their own little silos. But yeah, so in the book I have a chapter called "Communicate Like a Person, Not an Emoji." And it turns out in researching that chapter, I have been wrong my entire life, which is 57 years, on what communication actually was. I thought communication is what you and I were doing right now, but that's not the case. Communication, by definition, is the act of expressing information or exchanging it. But expressing is communication, which can happen through a text message, through an email, through posting something on Slack or Jira or Facebook. It's not what we're doing, which is actually having a dialogue. What we're doing is having a conversation. And a conversation, by definition, is the oral exchange, keyword there being exchange, of information, thoughts, or ideas. So when you have a conversation, you exchange information back and forth, you have a dialogue, people get to express their opinion, you get to understand their opinion, you might change your opinion. But when you just communicate, what normally happens is you post something, you put something in text, and it's a one-way communication and you don't get anything back, which is definitely the problem.
Yeah, and I am with you right there, but I think it means that we have to adopt a different modal in using these other tools, right? Let me ask you. Let's go old school. Would you have considered having a conversation with your boss on the telephone, just communication or conversation?
I think that's a conversation. So I don't want to say that face to face is the only way to do it. Conversation can obviously take a range of ways, but certainly I'll think about it on a continuum. You have on the thing all the way on the far left of the conversation spectrum, you have text based communication, which is 100% just send an email, send a text message, post something. It's one way. And then you move up the spectrum. Now you're having phone conversations where at least I can anticipate. I see the tone of what you're saying, right? Because that's with text-based stuff. How many times you've sent an email and somebody received it in a way in which you did not intend,
Right.
because you didn't intend for that. They took it in a different way. But now with voice, at least I get to hear the inflection points. I might be able to tell if you're getting mad through your voice, what you're saying to me, and I can maybe correct the situation. Then I go up to like what we're doing today on Zoom. Now I can see your face. I can see if you cross your arms and lean back, and I could take all that, but it's still not the same as face to face, where I see the entirety of your body and your body language. So I see it as a spectrum. And I certainly think you have to use them all, but I think face to face gives us the best communication we can possibly have.
My daughter's in med school, and right now, all the interviews, you remember in the past, you had to fly to wherever the school was, talk to the people, whatever. They're doing it all through Zoom right now. And, I asked some of the questions that you postulate right there, as far as whether they can get the real essence of the student when they're going through that particular thing. And I am not sure. I mean, in the case of my daughter and others that I've seen interview, it seems like the warmth of face-to-face communication was coming through. But I've seen, even in interviews, I do a lot of interviews, and even some of the interviews that I do here, that isn't always apparent, because there is a generation of some of us who have grown up, in as much as I'm around your age. I'm a bit older than you are, but I mean, in as much as we are of relevant ages, some of us are apt to this type of tool, but others see this as a tool, and they act as if they're talking to a tool. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you as if I am face to face with you. That's how I feel when I'm talking through this platform. But others feel that they have to put on a different persona when they're actually talking like this. So don't you think it also has to do with maybe generationally how you use these tools, whether they can give you the points of inflection and so forth that you're talking about?
I think it does play a role. I mean, even while you and I were talking, I realized my email hadn't been turned off and I didn't want it to disturb us. And so I was trying to shut it down and mute it, right? So I'm diverting my attention. It's because I wanted to be
Right.
focused on you and in the moment. And so those things take away from it. And I'm actually interviewing Sherry Turkle, who's a professor at MIT, and her whole research is around conversation and the role technology plays in it. She's been doing it since technology first came out with computers. And certainly she's focused on the generation that grew up with computers. And what's really interesting when you look at the research, both physical research and also anecdotal, is people, when they're on the phone, they're actually be in the same room with each other and texting each other, and they feel more connected that way. They don't feel like they have to have a conversation. They don't feel like they have to make eye contact. And what was really interesting is one anecdote was that people said that if you were in the room with me, I didn't feel, I mean, I felt more attached to the people I was texting back and forth, that even though you were in the room, you took a seat back. And that's so backwards of what I grew up doing.
Wait,
And
wait.
I'm sure what you grew
I
up
don't know if I
doing.
understood that, and I don't know if my audience would have understood that. You're saying that two people may be in the same room texting each other in the same room.
Yeah, you
And
might have a group of three of you in the room together, all facing each other even, but you're looking down at the device, and the people on the device take precedence over the person standing next to you.
oh, okay. And what does that mean?
It's just how discombobulated the whole system has become, right? Where, and I thought about it. How can I put that in my own context? So I've certainly been in a restaurant where I was trying to order some food and have the phone keep ringing. The person pick up the phone and answer and take their order, and I'm thinking, I'm standing right here. Why don't I matter? Why does that person on the phone matter more? Why do they get precedence over me? Right. So it's the same kind of scenario where it's the people on your phone, except now rather than being a voice call, it's actually a text-based system. They take precedence over the people standing right beside you. And part of that is that group that's grown up texting each other, they're not comfortable with conversation. Over and over, this group talks about the fact that they don't know how to have a conversation. They don't understand how to deal with the lulls, the pauses, maybe the uncomfortableness. They're better able to do it through text-based communication because, as they put it, I can make sure that it's right before I hit send, as opposed to what you and I are doing. We may misstep, we may make a mistake, we have to backtrack a bit, which you and I know is just comfortable conversation. But people that grew up with that text-based communication don't see it that way.
You know, I'm gonna segue that that you just said because I think it has some political implications as well, which I don't necessarily understand. In a lot of the dialogue that I do, I try to tell people we have to allow people to, we have to give people permission to make mistakes in their communication. You have to you know, and it's not about the cancel culture or anything like that. Cancel culture, there's a whole a whole other discussion. It's just allowing people to be human. You have thoughts, you make a mistake, and it can be any, absolutely any type of mistake because the thought process, that's just how it works. Um, I wonder if you just mentioned that the person said they like that people may want to text more because they can correct before they send. And isn't that really a sad thing that you think you cannot? You know, I'm a person that make a hell of a lot of mistakes when I talk.
It means you're living.
Right. And I would and I would tell people up front, forgive me if I screwed up.
Right. Absolutely. That's part of having a conversation, is the back and forth, and realizing, maybe not even realizing you said something that was going to be taken the wrong way, and it is, and you can immediately see the reaction and go, oh, sorry, let me say that differently. That's not what I intended. And so I think for all the preciseness of wanting to get it right on text, it still comes across in the wrong way because people get it through their filter. Are they having a bad day? You know, is it something going to set them off? This word that you intended very innocuously to use, they get received in a different way, which I think conversation actually lets you correct it immediately. But just people are not comfortable having those conversations, especially the younger generations who've grown up with technology in their hands the whole time.
I think also, Clint, we have to teach people again, it is okay to screw up. It is okay to make a mistake and not to judge by 1, 2, 3, 4 mistakes, judged by somebody's whole character. Now, how do teams build triumphantly? How do we build triumphantly? For those of us who are working in teams, communication is an important skill. And teams fail when there's lack of communication. And this can be any kind of team. This can be a political team, my audience. This can be a one working in a corporation, whatever. What is necessary for a team to be successful? A team that we know is likely to comprise people of different values, different ideologies, etc., etc., etc.
Well, I think you have to first and foremost realize that conversation and communication are two different things. And we probably have more than enough communication. The question is, are we getting our message across? Is it coming across in the way we intended? And we do that through conversation. And so the way that the example I like to use is when we were kids, we probably all played the game called telephone, where you'd have 4 or 5 of people lined up in a row, and the first person whispers a secret to the second person, who whispers it on down the line. And of course, the fun of the game is what person number 5 says is not remotely close to what person number 1 whispered, right? And the reason is they are communicating one to one, but each individual takes that communication through their own bias, their own life experiences, their own filters, the way that the day they're having, the way they define words, and they take that communication and they receive it, and they put their own twist on it and pass it on down the line. And of course, what happens, that's the fun of the game, is the message gets mangled. Whereas if you took that same, that happens in the business world today, where you think you've communicated something well and the message got mangled. So what would make that better is if each person could then turn back to the previous person and say, well, wait a minute, what does that word mean to you? Because to me, it means this. And when you say go left, do you mean like go left right now or at the stop sign? And by asking these clarifying questions, which take the form of a conversation, they're able to get the message, if not perfectly, at least much more aligned. And so what comes out of the end is very similar to what the first person said. So one is to make sure we're not just having communication, that we are having conversations. Now, the second part of that is, as human beings, we have this burning desire to want to check things off of our to-do list. And the easy way to do that is send you a text message saying it's done. But this is actually pre-pandemic. How many times did you send a voicemail, leave a voicemail for someone, or shoot a text message when you could have walked down the hallway and asked the question? And the reason we do that is if I send you a one-way communication, in my mind, checkbox done, off my plate, now it's somebody else's problem. But if I actually picked up the phone or walked down the hallway and talked to you, I might find out that I'm not done and I've got 3 more things on my plate, which I don't really want, right? So we default to those one-way communications, which to me are great things to have. So if you want to have this conversation today and I need to shoot you an email about something, that's fine. But it's look at the whole body of work and say, I need to have conversation as my main focus, and then touch around it with the other types of communication available to me.
What you just said, I think is so important. I think it's so important. And again, being the political buff, something came to mind, and there's this tenet that says, if you're explaining, you're losing. And sadly, that is our politics today. One-liners that grabs onto people, and after you have the one-liners, everybody, as you said it before, they run with it and playing that game that you spoke about, tell the other person, the other person, the other person. By then it's completely mangled to its own belief. And I look at what just happened in Texas that took more than 10 years to develop. We never asked Texans in general, Texas as a majority the majority voters in Texas, never asked what did it really mean to our power system, what we did here. And what we're seeing today is the realization of what occurred. And I mean, in all our dialogue, whether it's left or right, and by the way, I'm a lefty. I assume you're not, but that's fine. The thing about it is, I think if one can communicate, there are certain basic values we all have, and then there are certain basic divergences that while will remain divergence, can be mitigated to have a society. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I like to think I'm a centrist, right?
Oh, you are.
I'm kind of in the middle.
I took you as someone on the right.
No, I'm definitely not far right or far left. I'm really more in the middle. That's my political beliefs, and to the point where and this is kind of getting around the politics, is I feel like right now what we're doing as a society is we each have our foxhole, we dig in, and we don't have a conversation. We think we do. We're just hurling epithets back and forth at each other. We're not really listening, right? So part of a conversation is to actually listen. And what that means is I have to recognize that you have a point of view that may be very different than my point of view, but it's valid to you. And so I have to recognize that point of view has validity to you in your world. And I don't have to agree with it. I just have to recognize you have it and it's important to you. That's having a conversation, as opposed to what people do is they isolate themselves and they insulate themselves with people just like them, which reinforces their own point of view, and they don't see the other points of view. So what I try to do in my world is I try to have, if I get something on my feed from one of my friends who is far left or far right, and I disagree with there's always the tendency to go, I'm just going to mute this person. That makes me mad. And I never do it because I want to understand that somebody has a different point of view than I do, and at least understand why they have that point of view, and if I don't agree with it. And I think that's what we have to do as a society, is be able to listen to each other, which we're not doing today.
Now, I don't ban anybody on Facebook. I don't ban people. I do exactly what you just said. I listen to all points of view. And when I had to decide, am I going to, let's say, talk to you or not, I made all the, and it shows you why you don't make assumptions as well, right? I made all these assumptions because I saw the title of the book, I saw Forbes, and I saw all these kinds of things. And I said, you know what? But I still want my audience to be able to see what we always preach. We preach this on Politics Done Right, that we want to have, we're lefties, but we want the open conversation. We want to talk to everybody because, like I tell my audience all the time, you come out with a damn good idea, I'm going to take it away from you. And I'm going to make that idea, now that's a lefty idea, but I'm kidding, but actually I'm not. But that is what, I think that is how we move forward. And having you on, I thought this would be a refreshment for people to see people talk about having true conversation, talking things out with somebody that doesn't necessarily agree with you. Now, I always ask this as a last question. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
I think one thing that comes to mind is we have to think about to ourselves the difference between intention and results. So they did a survey back in 1997 on U.S. News and World Report, and they surveyed a bunch of people in the U.S. and they asked them the following question: what chance would you give the following person to get into heaven? And when I tell you the list, of course, it's a quite dated list because it was 97, but you have people on the list like, let's see, who was the worst one I think on the list was, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton got 55% chance to get into heaven. And then I guess Hillary got 58%. She got 3% for putting up with Bill. That's the way I like to say it. Then Michael Jordan got 65%. And Oprah Winfrey got 66%. It's proving you can indeed buy your way into heaven, right? So then they had, what about Mother Teresa? So when I heard this, I'm thinking, Mother Teresa, it's got to be like 9,900%, right? It was 78%.
No.
They only gave her a 78% chance of getting into heaven. One person scored higher than 78 at 87%. And that person was the person being surveyed. So think about that. I give myself a better chance of getting into heaven than I gave Mother Teresa. And so I thought about, why is that? And by the way, the person who described this to me when I was reading the story, I thought was fantastic the way they put it. He said, so if I get this right, Mother Teresa and I show up at the pearly gate. St. Peter says there's only room for one of you. I look at Mother Teresa and say, excuse me, ma'am, this spot's reserved for me, right? And step through. But why is that? And I think the reason that is because we judge others based on the results that we actually see. We judge ourselves based off of our intentions. If I intended to do right and do well, I give myself credit for that, even if I never did. We judge others based off of results. So I think we have to be cognizant of that and make sure that we are creating the results we're giving ourselves credit for.
Clint Padgett, President and CEO of Project Success, Inc., and author of How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment. It was my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. Please keep communicating, but mostly having conversations.
Thanks for having me.
We spend all right, folks. Coming back to the issue as far as reliability of news, I think it's an important issue. If we're asking for your confidence, we like to know how you're judged, how people judge you, etc. I want you to see, let's see, I want you to see how Fox News is rated. Here is Fox News's rating, mixed. Trump's channel, of course, we ought to know what Trump's channel would look like. Trump's channel is rated what again? Low, as far as reliability is concerned. Truthfulness is concerned, low. And what was the other one we had? Newsmax. I thought I had Newsmax on, but apparently I don't have Newsmax on. But Newsmax as well turned out to be, what again? Let's get to Newsmax. Newsmax turned out to be, let's put you here, Newsmax. Where is Newsmax? Where did he go? I guess I got him into, oh, here's Newsmax. Anytime, so I mean, when people ask you, where do you get your information from? Here is Newsmax, mixed. So we have Newsmax, that's mixed. Trump's channel, OAN, that is low, right? And then we have Fox News, that is what again? Fox News is mixed. And then we have our network here, egbertowillis.com, is... let's see, where do I have my own? Oh, where do I have my? There is egbertowillis.com. And egbertowillis.com, come on, egbertowillis.com, that's you right there. Where are you? There we go. For some reason, it's not coming up. It's not coming up. Anyhow, ours is rated high. The only reason I'm bringing those things up is because, there are a lot of people that just go ahead and talk out the you-know-what. And those are the realities. Anyhow, we are coming close to the end of the programs. I want to thank you guys so kindly for being here with us. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.